What's up, gunfighters? Saddle up for Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, training. Today, training rifles. All the right way with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. You may ask yourself, who is this dude and why should I care at all what he has to say? And I'd say, good on you. That's a good question. Since we're going to be talking about training today, I'm going to put in the bio. Then we'll get into the main topic. If you want to skip it, you can skip around 2 minutes. And I'll catch you on the flip side. I'll roll into a quick abbreviated bio and then into the main topic. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life. I grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of the southeastern United States at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are with firearms. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. By God's grace, He got me through that safely. After that, I served as an instructor, an urban warfare instructor and a desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. I also served with the LAPD, both full-time as a sworn police officer and in some more specialized assignments, as well as serving in the U.S. Army, full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a FBI firearms instructor, still am an FBI firearms instructor, have been for a lot of years, also NRA certified and some other three-letter government agency certified. I've been a private contractor for a three-letter government agency I won't specify. I've been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. By God's grace, He got me through all that in one piece, not because I'm better, but because He chose to have grace and mercy on me. I've been a professional hunter and guide. Professionally hunted things like buffalo and elk. Not many people today can say they've done that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've hunted everything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast to gray squirrel on the East Coast to prairie dog on the West Coast and elk and bear and wolf and slain all manner of beast. A state rifle and pistol champion a few times over in a few different disciplines. Enough about me, guys. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and fingers for battle. Let's get into today's topic. Alright, so initially I thought I would do another top, 22 training rifles in 2024, but I don't think that's the best format for that. I've been doing a lot of those, and I don't think that's the right way to go for this episode. How about just thoughts and philosophy behind 22 training rifles? Number one, the fact that it is an awesome training tool and a great training philosophy. And it's not just me that thinks that. Look at the number of 22 military training rifles there have been throughout history. Go look at just the vast menagerie of countries and units that have used 22s for training. There's a lot. There's a reason for that. By the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter is established. 22 is a phenomenal way to train, especially the fundamentals. Stance, grip, sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, breath control, follow through, natural point of aim. Not to mention safety and gun handling, which you can learn before you even pick up a gun, but it's a good reinforcement. So, it's a good idea. It's a solid philosophy. With that groundwork established, what makes a good training rifle? And for that, one would have to ask, what are you training for? Alright, so let's start with just what I think is a great all-around training rifle. For just the basic fundamentals. Single shot, bolt action, 22, peep sight, iron sights. Done. I have a ton of guns. I also have one like that I train with and train with quite a lot. It's simple. It's single shot. We're talking about, this is not an all-around rifleman's training rifle. This is a fundamentals training rifle. Stance, grip, sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, breath control, follow through. Natural point of aim. Learning how to call the shots. All those things. For all those things, a single shot 22 with good iron sights will do all that. They're cheap, they're affordable, they're going to have, one of the key elements of a single shot is a slow rate of fire, which is going to help you develop an important skill for being a good shooter in general, a good rifleman, good at pistol craft, good at many things. And that is self-diagnostic ability. Was that a great shot? Why was it a great shot? Was it a poor shot? Why did you perform poorly? Would take all the emotion out of it, look at it surgically, succinctly, precisely, circumspectly. Why did that shot do what it did? And that single shot will give you the time to evaluate your performance honestly, if you're ready to do that. With a semi-auto, you might just think, oh, I missed, and you just shoot again and shoot again and shoot again until you hit, and you're like, oh, I'm good. But if you're trying to establish firm fundamentals, that single shot, and single shot bolt action is just a good way to go because it helps you get familiar with the bolt action. But if you want to break open single shot, that will work too. But single shot just is really good for that. You could go old or new for that. There are many different versions of those. There's the old Winchesters, I think old Remingtons, the Savage still makes some. Keystone Sporting Arms makes some really cool ones. Really good single shot, bolt action 22s with a good iron sights. That's for pure rifle fundamentals. Now let's talk about what I think is perhaps the best just modern rifleman's training rifle. And if you guys don't know, I didn't do this to plug that, but I did a lot of work developing the Modern Rifleman's Course of Fire. You can go back and look that up under that title. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. I'm sure you can find it if you want to. But Modern Rifleman's Course of Fire. For becoming like a good, solid modern rifleman and maintaining that skill. That's one of the great things about the 22. All those skills, I designed that Course of Fire that you could train with a 22. Now, I'm not telling you to run into the apocalypse with a 22. I'm not that dude. I'm not telling you it's just as good as any other rifle. I'm not. I'm saying for maintaining your fundamentals, for honing your fundamentals, for staying sharp on the fundamentals. I think you're better regularly practicing that Course of Fire or something like it with the 22 than not practicing. Or than doing it every once in a while with your main go-to gun. A good 22 trainer. And a good one for that, depending on what your main platform is going to be. But a good one for that, a Ruger 1022. It's like the standard, right? Get a Ruger 1022. If you're cool enough, get it in stainless, right? If you can go stainless, almost always go stainless, unless there's some aesthetic reason, but stainless. Stainless Ruger 1022. Get a really good set of sights. Not the sights that are on it, unless you're training for an AK. If an AK is going to be your go-to rifle, then the sights that come on it are actually pretty close to AK sights. But get good peep sights. I recommend either the Tech sights, they're my number one recommendation, or the Williams peep sights. They are both really good. Get a really good sling. So hopefully there's a really good sling and sight setup like this on your go-to fighting rifle. But that's a great thing. And once you have your fundamentals established, you can start doing things like multiple hits on a target transitions, things like that with the 1022. And the 1022 is a standard, and I don't think you'd ever regret having a 1022. You're going to get used to loading a box magazine. Now, it doesn't load like an AR, but it loads more akin to an AK, and it's not a hard thing to learn, and it's not so alien that you wouldn't know how to do it. It's really good. It's really reliable. There's a lot of aftermarket support for them, which gets to those really good sights, either the Tech sights or the Williams Peep sights. Get a really good sling, one that is decent for tension. It's pretty hard in audio to describe to you a proper sling tension technique. There are many, but just try one and see how it works for you, and then maybe try another one and see which sling tension technique, and maybe different for different positions, standing, kneeling, sitting prone, which sling tension technique that you like. But good Tech sights or Williams Peep sights, or maybe there's some other brand I'm not aware of, really good Peep sights and a really good sling. And start with a good training course of fire, either that Modern Rifleman's course of fire, but even before that, probably the U.S. Army Alternate Qual Course C. You can have a lot of fun shooting that with a 22. It's a U.S. Army Alternate Qual. You shoot it all at 25 meters, so you can shoot it with a 22. And with that setup, you should be able to do quite well if you have decent fundamentals. But that Ruger 1022, good peep sights, and a good sling, don't have to spend a fortune. If you are good with a stock Ruger 1022 trigger, that pretty much approximates. It's not a good trigger; it's a bad trigger, but it's probably about the same as a stock mil-spec AR trigger. So if you're going to run your go-to AR or something like it with the stock trigger, then you probably want to practice with that stock Ruger 1022 trigger. If you have a much better trigger in your go-to gun and most of your go-to guns, then you may want to go with an aftermarket trigger. I got asked about this. I have in the past used several Volquartsen kits. You use most of your existing components and you do the Volquartsen part swap. Volquartsen makes some really good high-end 22 stuff. Their kit is good, but it does require you to know a bit about mechanics to install it. It's not an easy install. If you want an easy install, and honestly today with the price difference, the Ruger, I think it's the BX trigger, it's phenomenal. It's drop-in. It's a Ruger factory part. It's better than the original trigger. It's easy to install. So if you want a really easy solution for a good trigger, that Ruger BX trigger. Again, that goes back to the Ruger 1022 and being really good with that aftermarket support, and this is where that really might come in handy. Now, after you're good and decent and have practiced quite a bit, because I think you should know how to run iron sights, and I think your fighting rifle should have backup iron sights. So once you're good with the iron sights, then you can go to your go-to optic. Right, that's one of the good things about the Ruger 1022. It has good modern optics mounting, and there's a bunch of aftermarket support. So unlike something like the Marler Model 60 where you have that 3/8 dovetail, you can get really good bases. You can get really good either see-through bases if you still want to use the irons, or you can get really good just QD bases or more akin to an AR type base. Now keep in mind, I don't recommend using the same height bases because an AR is kind of a peculiar animal. An AR has a straight backstock because of the buffer tube. The Ruger 1022 is like most other conventional rifles, like an AK, like a SCAR 17, where it has a swept down stock. So don't think that you should get the same height that you're going to get on your AR. But with that caveat, you can get something that handles very similarly. You're probably going to have a lower mount, but you can mount, let's say, a red dot sight. You might go with a cheaper version, like if your AR has an aim point, you might go with a Bushnell, right? Just a decent Bushnell red dot sight. If this is a training rifle, if it's an apocalypse rifle, maybe go quality or a really good optic, but something decent, much more affordable, unless you just want to drop a several $1,000 aim point or EOTech on your Ruger 1022. You can get something akin to it if you're going to run a reflex sight or a red dot sight or a prism sight or an LPVO. You can get all those options mounted really well on that 1022. Again, I think after you've gotten good with the iron sights. Anyway, that's a really, really good thing. If you want something just much, much more similar to an AR, there are many decent AR, like they look just like an AR. If that's really important to you, then go with one of those. The main one I can think of is the Smith & Wesson M&P 22 rifle. It's very much like an M4 clone in 22. Or you could just get a dedicated 22 upper if you wanted to go that route. I know they make the 22 conversion kits, but they're not, as I understand it, highly accurate because of different twist rates and different bore diameters and things. They will work, but if you're trying to practice good marksmanship, I don't think they're the best choice. I think a dedicated upper or an entirely different gun is probably a better choice. If we're talking about training for that. If you're talking about training with a bolt action rifle, then if you're doing this to train for hunting, which is a great idea, or you want to get this and train with and then do small game hunting to get better at big game hunting, I think that's a phenomenal choice. For this, there are many good bolt action 22s. If you want something really good, high quality that you would like heirloom quality hand down to your kids, grandkids, then the two big ones that stand out to me, they may not be the only two, but the two big ones are the Browning bolt action 22 or the CZ bolt action 22s. Both are exquisite, both are elegant, both are really good like heirloom quality 22s. That said, that's not what I want for training, because I'm going to beat the crap out of my rifle when I train with it, and I probably shouldn't be training with one of those. But if you're not like me and you get home and like actually really take really good care of your weapons and you want to pass them down, then you might look at one of those. They're exquisite rifles. If you want a more utilitarian, there are the Savages. They're probably the best value for the money. Very good accuracy, like many of the Savages. Savage makes many different bolt action 22s. Get the one that most is to your taste, but they usually come with pretty decent iron sights anyway. Put a good sling on it, and there you go. Also, they're going to be able to get decent bases for it and mount whatever kind of optic you want. Now, for a hunting 22, if you're going to hunt with it and or just practice with it, I'm a really big fan of just a straight 4-power. I think a straight 4-power scope on a bolt action 22 is a really good match. I mentioned the Savage. There's also the Ruger American 22, which is a really, really well-made 22. And those are going to take your Ruger 1022 mag. So if you have a Ruger 1022 for like tactical training, or for you just have a 1022 that you like to shoot and you want to use the same mags and be semi-familiar with it, then you might look at the Ruger American 22. There are all different models of that. But similar thing, if you're setting it up for hunting, then set it up similar to your hunting rifle. Similar kind of sling, similar kind of optic. So if you don't even have iron sights on your hunting rifle, then as long as you understand and can train with iron sights, which I think is important, just putting a scope on the bolt action 22, if it's to train for hunting and you want to get way more hunting, and if you want to become a good hunter, probably don't just hunt deer, right? Because deer season in most places is not very long. But, small game season is a lot longer. And many of the tactics are the same. Stalking, knowing when to shoot and when not to shoot, testing all your other gear, your boots, walking quietly, where to set up an ambush, all those other things, right? So you can get a lot more hunting practice in if you're hunting small game. And if you hunt your large game with a bolt action, not that you have to, but if you want a lot more continuity, get familiar with the bolt action 22 for training. And again, similar sling, similar optic, not necessarily the same power, but probably so it handles the same, similar cheek weld, all that stuff. And get out there and get some really fun small game hunting in. And same goes for the lever action. Now, talked about heirloom. If you want a really good heirloom quality lever action, I'd say go with the Browning. Browning makes an exquisite lever action 22, just breathtakingly beautiful. If you want just a decent lever action because you normally hunt with a lever action, then kind of the big one right now is Henry. Henry makes a ton of different lever actions. lever action 22s. The big thing that kills them for me, I've looked at them and never really wanted to get one, is because they don't make any of them with stainless barrels. Not a single model that I'm aware of. But if that's not important to you, if you don't care about the stainless thing, then Henry is going to be your big name in the decent rifle, decent price 22 lever action, the Henry 22s. And again, set it up similar. If you're going to hunt with iron sights on your 30-30, then hunt with iron sights on your lever action 22. If you are going to mount an optic on it, then mount an optic on it. Similar sling, similar setup, and practice similar field conditions, whether you're actually small game hunting or just practicing. Kneeling, resting on a log, resting on a pack, whatever the case is. And a good training rifle for your go-to hunting rifle. If you're serious about shooting and training, the whole idea of a 22 training rifle should pay for itself in short order, just in the amount of money you'll save on ammo alone. Think about what it costs to go out and shoot, let's say, 50 rounds of your hunting ammo in your centerfire hunting rifle. And then think about how many times you would have to do that to pay for a 22 rifle. It's not a lot if you train a lot. If you train quite often, it will pay for itself. And if you really want to master the fundamentals, you're probably talking a lot of rounds of ammunition. So the 22 really, I think, is going to pay for itself. And going back to the Ruger 1022, if you own a bunch of tactical guns and you don't own a 1022, I don't think you'd ever regret owning a 1022, no matter how many ARs you have, or Glock clones, or Polymer Striker Fire de jours, whatever the hot new Polymer Striker Fire gun of the day is, of the year is. You're probably not going to regret owning a Ruger 1022. So going back to that, if you just want one really good 22 rifle for training, and for if you just want a 22 for small game hunting for all around, really the 1022 is a tough thing to beat. There are other rifles that you might argue are more accurate or more precise or more beautiful heirloom quality pieces or whatever the case is, but again, I don't think anybody would regret owning a Ruger 1022. And I'm not paid by Ruger, I'm not sponsored by Ruger. It's just, it is the de facto 22 rifle of our time. And there may be reasons you want something else, which we've gone into, but that really good Ruger 1022, stainless, peep sight, good sling, good optics mounting ability, good aftermarket triggers. Just, it's a really, really good thing to have, and especially for training. Anyway, with that, that's pretty much going to wrap up the thoughts on 22 training rifles. Your tactical tip of the day, if you want to kind of have a quasi small game session, but small game season is not in, or you're trying to get somebody into hunting and they're not really ready for the actual hunting part, find somewhere safe, like out west we might call it a wadi or a ravine. Back east you might call it a ditch. But somewhere you can walk in with banks where, downrange is a safe direction, but where you can't see too far downrange, and set sporting clays at different places so that you might be walking around a corner and one's at 25 yards, and then you might walk around another bend in the ditch or in the wadi, and then there's two targets. One's at 10 and one's at 75 yards. And you can go through this and have a lot of fun running these kind of shooting scenarios with the 22. Anyway, that's your tactical tip of the day. Your tactical verse of the day. NIV translation from Proverbs 12. The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt. My general go-to translation, people have asked, is the New King James. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is man's precious possession. Anyway, with that, thanks for listening, men, and have a blessed day.